In this audio, I'd like to talk about the Greek infinitive. An infinitive in the Greek is considered a verbal noun because it has some qualities of a verb and some of a noun. So like a verb, it has tense, can be present, aorist, or perfect tense. It has voice, where it can be parsed as active voice, middle voice, and passive voice. And it does not have person or number. Like a noun, the Greek infinitive can have case functions, so it can be a subject of the sentence, an object, and it can take a definite article. But again, it actually has no case. It can just function in a particular case. Like other non-indicative verbs, the tenses of the infinitive do not indicate time, but aspect. So the type of action is more important than the timing of action. So a present infinitive might indicate a continuous type of action or a habitual type. An aorist is an undefined action, and the perfect infinitive would be more of a completed action because remember the perfect tense has a completed action in the past with ongoing results in the present. But again, it's because of the nature of the infinitive, it is somewhat difficult to bring out these nuances in the English translation. You will simply want to make a note of them, and if you come across an infinitive in a sentence and there's more context around that passage that you're working on, you might be able to make more of an argument or clarify a question that you might have based on the type of infinitive that you're looking at, the tense. Here are some examples of what an infinitive looks like. So in present active infinitive of lambano is lambanane. It just simply has this epsilon iota nu added to the end of it. The typical translation for a basic infinitive is to add the word to the verb, to receive. To loose here is an aorist active infinitive. It has the sigma alpha iota. A second aorist, which is another type of aorist that changes its form. So this is the aorist infinitive of lambano. It actually changes, the word changes, and that happens in the category called second aorist verbs. But here's an example, to receive. And again, those are undefined actions, right, because they're aorist tense. In the present middle passive, it's middle. If it's a true middle, then it would be the action of the verb acting upon itself, the infinitive acting upon itself. So to loose for oneself. If it's passive, it's more to be loosed. And then we've got the perfect, which has a reduplication on the front in the infinitive, and most of the forms of perfect have this reduplication. Perfect active infinitive, to have loosed. So in the past, a completed action in the past. And in the perfect tense, we've seen that have or has often in our translations. In the uses of the Greek infinitive, there are quite a few. One is the substantive use, which we have been covering with adjectives. Because an infinitive is a verbal noun, it can function as a substantive in that noun portion of it. So when it's used in this way, it will usually be preceded, not always, but usually be preceded by a definite article. And that article should most likely be in the neuter singular. And you will simply translate using the preposition to before the verb. So here we have to estien, estin agathon. So our translation would be, here's our verbal infinitive, eat, to eat, and we've got our neuter singular article preceding it. So to eat is our substantive translation. To eat, estin, is good. To eat is good. So the infinitive plus the article is functioning as a substantive in this example, as the subject of the sentence. Another common, very common use of the infinitive is something called the complementary infinitive. This is where the infinitive verb completes the meaning of a verb. So you will have the infinitive following a finite verb that usually you do not have the neuter definite article preceding the infinitive. So instead you just have somewhat of an incomplete action of that verb. That verb requires almost a helping or a complementary action to complete the action of the verb. So again, you're going to use the preposition to before the verb. So here's an example. Dunamai estiain. I am able to, or I am able is what dunamai means. And so you can hear it in the English. It needs some more, it needs something else to complete the sentence. I am able to what? I am able, and so here we have estiain. I am able to eat. So estiain is the infinitive here, and it's complementing or completing that action of the finite verb. Here's another example. I begin to, or I begin. This word also means I rule when it's not middle, but when it's in the middle voice, it's translated I begin. And here's it begin. I begin what? I need something to finish that, right? So that's where the complementary infinitive usage comes in. I begin to eat. There are a number of verbs that tend to require a complementary infinitive, so it's helpful to know those. Day is one of those that means it is necessary. Well, it's a necessary what? It is necessary, and then you'll need a complementary infinitive. Existen means it is lawful. Mello, I'm about to. Dunamai, I am able. Archomai, I am beginning or I begin. So all of these verbs tend to be an incomplete action of sorts, and so they need the complementary infinitive to complete the action. The infinitive will often be followed by a noun in the accusative case, and so that's important to start to keep an eye out for. It won't be as critical as we're using BibleWorks and using the software. However, it is a bit of an anomaly or a nuance that you do want to be aware of, and that is that often there is an accusative noun near the infinitive that is functioning kind of like it's the subject of the infinitive. And you're going to translate this accusative noun just like it is a nominative noun. So here's an example. Well, actually, we're going to see that play out in all of the examples that come here in our as we continue to look at the uses of the infinitive. But what the third use of the infinitive after the complementary infinitive is when you have a preposition plus an articular infinitive. That means an infinitive preceded by an article. The case of the definite article is determined by the preposition, because as you remember from prepositions, how you translate the preposition will be dependent upon the definite article that of the case of the noun that follows it. So here, the case of the definite article is determined by the preposition. One of the primary uses of a preposition with an articular infinitive is for result or purpose. Here we have dia, the preposition dia, which is going to be followed by the accusative. It's going to be translated because. You'll recall that if dia is followed by the genitive, it means through. So there are different translations for these prepositions depending upon the case of the noun that follows them. So dia followed by the accusative will be translated because, and that is a construction that indicates result or purpose. So here we have dia, the article plus the infinitive, and then here we have this accusative just lingering here. And so dia to blepain, because to see, right? Or we don't have to add the to because we're adding because of the preposition. Because, but we need an object, right? So because, here's our accusative subject of the infinitive, because he sees. So this accusative looks like an object. It looks like it's the direct object, but it actually is functioning as a subject of that infinitive, which we just covered. So because, and you translate it like a nominative, because he sees. So auton is the subject. So result and purpose. The second type would have the preposition ace followed by the accusative. And that one should be translated, if you have ace followed by the accusative with these articular infinitives, then it means in order that, and it's showing result or purpose. In order that she sees. So here we have ace plus our article plus our infinitive, and then our accusative functioning as the subject of the infinitive. And this is again another result or purpose, ace followed by this construction, in order that she sees, or for the purpose that she sees. Here's an example. Apagagon, Alton, ace to staurosai. They led him. Now, there are times that you might have, you're going to have to play around with the accusatives, because you still could have an accusative near this construction that is actually working as the object of the previous verb. So they led who? Him away. So they led away him for the purpose, or in order that they might crucify him. Now here we kind of have it implied, and we'd have to actually look at the further in the sentence, but just keep an eye out, because that accusative could be the subject of the infinitive, but it also could be functioning as the object of another action in the verb depending upon what's happening there. Third type of result or purpose of use of the preposition plus an articular infinitive is pros, and it will be translated in order that he sees. So a lot of these are very similar, just it's the same kind of, you just need to pay attention to the translation of the word. The fourth use of the Greek infinitive is an infinitive of purpose. It could have the definite article in the genitive case, or you could see the infinitive by itself without the article. Here's an example with the genitive cased article. Tu lusai me. Now here we've got again accusative that is near this construction, so it could be functioning, if there's no clearer subject, could be functioning as the subject of the infinitive. In order that I loose. So the infinitive of purpose with an infinitive preceded by a genitive case article, and then we just happen to have the accusative subject of infinitive. So there are 33 instances in the New Testament of a genitive articular infinitive used for purpose. They tend to appear in the Gospels and Acts there, Matthew and Luke. Here's another example. Elthomen, we have come. Here we have just the infinitive without the article for the purpose to pray. We've come to pray. We've come or to worship. We've come in order to, or for the purpose of, worshiping. Fifth type of infinitive is the infinitive of result. This infinitive would be preceded by the word hoste. Here's an example of that. Jesus loves me, agapa me. So here's an accusative. We'd have to figure out what to do, but we've got another accusative, actually two accusatives here. Jesus loves me, hoste, with the result that akaluthein me. So here we have our infinitive preceded by hoste, and then an accusative subject of the infinitive. Usually if you have two accusatives that follow, the first one's going to be the functioning like the subject of the infinitive, and the second one is going to be the object. Just a rule of thumb there. But Jesus loves me for the purpose or with the result that I follow him. So Alton there would be the object. You also can have temporal infinitive constructions that do have a sort of time indication. Pro will be translated before, and there again you have the articular infinitive, accusative subject of infinitive, before he sees. In will typically be followed by the dative, and then you're going to translate it when or while she sees. And meta plus the accusative will be translated after he sees. There are two other uses, the appositional use that stands in apposition to the substantive, as well as those that are related to an epexegetical usage. And I would suggest you look in Wallace and do some reading about these, but the epexegetical will clarify or explain or qualify the head noun. If it stands in apposition to a substantive, then it's going to be telling